shows and everything. So yeah, so like we've she really didn't care too much about the hobby at first, and then as it got bigger and bigger, and then we actually started gaining a lot of stuff, and we kind of about again we said we've been in the hobby about 3 years, and we've been in business about excuse me, been in the hobby 7 years, been in business about 3 years, and the last year, the beginning of last year, she was kind of just not enjoying her job. It's just, that feeling. You get up, you go to work, you got that sick feeling, you're not enjoying what you're doing. And, we were starting to kind of, the quarrel was picking up. And I told her, I said, hey, look, you don't like, she's like, well, I don't really like the reefing. I said, well, hey, look, you don't like your job either. Either you can come home and not like your job, at least be home, or you can, you can stay at work and not like your job. She's like, all right, well, I'll come home. So, she came home and she got the bug. She started loving everything about the reef tanks. I got her own tank. I got her a little BioCube, and literally within like 4 weeks of setting up the BioCube, she looks at me, she goes, I need a bigger tank. So I looked at her, I was like, I got you.
She's got what, like a 120 now?
Yeah, 125 she has. And she's even needing a bigger tank now than this, but we have so much, and what we would like doing here is aquaculture. So it's a long-term collection. Any piece that we're collecting, we're collecting because we like it, and then eventually it makes its way to everybody else. So it's kind of, we don't like doing the turn and burn thing. We're not doing the chop shop thing. And don't get me wrong, like when we start getting into the business realm of it, we totally understand. Like, there's money in the chop shop. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's throughput. But we love our animals. Plain and simple. We love our collection. We love what we do. We believe in more ethical reefing and being able to teach other people that, because we always talk. A big thing we know in reefing is that we're always teaching each other. Everybody's always repeating something to somebody else. And a lot of the times it's good information, and a lot of the times it's bad information. And a lot of the times it's okay information. You just don't know what context to look at it in. So that's why, I kind of made a little thing, I got this from another friend. We were doing lives, and he had mentioned it's called the Pillars of Reefing. And that's, I kind of expanded on that in my own way, but that's really all I took from the name. But, if you look at what it takes to run a reef tank, it's not just any one particular thing that to have a successful reef. It's all these little pillars that hold up what it is to have a successful reef tank. And while one or two or three of those pillars can keep a tank going, you're not going to have a tank that's thriving without all of them being built on a solid foundation. And that solid foundation is good knowledge. So again, I don't know, everybody's got their different skill levels. And what I will say as a caveat to this is whatever you hear from me tonight, go do your research. I'm not the end all be all with knowledge. I'm just another reefer. I make mistakes all the damn time. Like, I screw things up. I killed more amounts of coral than I would like to admit. Yeah, we all do that stuff, man. And trust me, I'm not afraid to show you and be honest with you, the bad sides of the hobby that I've dealt with, because at least if I can tell you what I've done and what I've overcome, I can show you guys, like putting Elisa onto the Angel Plus, fish dewormer, because she ended up getting acro-eating flatworms. Not to air your business out, homie, but you beat it. Like, you overcame a problem and a pest that would normally knock reefers out of the hobby completely. So, just these wonderful pieces of knowledge that we're trading with each other ultimately really does make this hobby better. And the wonderful thing I always want to give you guys a perspective check is that we are realistically pioneering the information in this hobby, because if you're not noticing, there's a lot of information that feeds back between the hobby side and the official side. And we are helping each other out in that. And you're seeing it as it transfers over into aquaculture, long-term captivity. You're breeding, captive bred fish, captive bred inverts if you can, things like that. We're trying to get to a more sustainable hobby, and that ultimately sustains our reef and the things that we love, because last thing we want to do is see the stuff disappear from the ocean. So we need to take this seriously at reefers, and we need to take this seriously that, yo, we're making what, you know, God's perfection is in nature, and we're trying to recreate it in a little glass box. And that's a miracle in itself, but we need to treat it as, you know, hey, we're doing a really cool, important thing. You know, don't be unfair to your animals. Don't treat your animals bad. And coral is animals just as much as your fish, your shrimp, everything are. So yeah, with that, like, I guess I'll go on. Like, when we talk about the pillars of reefing, I look at, you know, different things like lighting, flow, water quality, and, you know, I'll even kind of go into some of this because, again, everybody has their different levels of knowledge on this. So if you guys, if anybody wants to stop me in the chat, I know it's a lot of information and I kind of talk fast sometimes. So let's start with lighting right now. So lighting is one of those pillars that it is important. Obviously, our coral photosynthesizes off the light, right? So when you're looking at lighting and you guys are trying to choose your lights, you want to look at something that, you know, obviously is going to give you your good spectrum. So your coral photosynthesizes between your 400 and 500 nanometer light range, which is usually like, you know, your UVs, your heavy and your blues, your you know, your cyans, things like that. It does utilize, you know, your reds and your greens too, but not so much. But yeah, you know, you want to find some form of lighting that's going to provide the proper spectrum. You're going to find some form of lighting that is going to, you know, provide the proper intensity too. And here's the thing with knowing and planning what it is that you want your reef to look like, because again, a lot of us see mixed reefs, and we're kind of forgetting that, like, yo, when you're growing SPS and LPS, you know, you're growing an SPS piece and you're trying to put it next to a torch, or an acantho or anything like that. These two things are grown in completely different parts of the reef, and they're getting completely different, you know, you know, needs. You know, they have different needs. They're getting different flow, lighting, everything, nutrients. So realistically, you want to know what it is you want to keep, and then you want to, you know, put those things in a little box. And you know, it's a difficult thing to do sometimes, but find something, you know, I guess, so I don't ramble. Plan your reef out, know what lighting you're going to use on, if you're going to be blasting a lot of light in there because you want to go stony corals, if you're going to be doing like, you know, LPS, things like that, that don't need as much light. You know, hey, you know, slow your flow down. That way you're not trying to fight against yourself, trying to shove it all in a little box. So let's see. So, you know, your intensity, your spectrum, knowing what it is your needs are for those corals. Another pillar would be, somebody asked in the chat, random lighting, but I guess we'll keep just going until we get.
So real quick, what do you prefer for lighting? So like, what does your lighting look like?
So in our lightings, I'm a creature of habit. I like Radions, like the Gen 4s, the old ones, and that's more for I've been doing this as a hobbyist for a long time, so it was the best bang for my buck. I could find them good on Facebook Marketplace for, you know, $250 to $400 depending. And they're good spectrum. They grow great coral. So I use Radion Gen 4s and T5s, and I've gotten onto Quanta bars as well recently as a new thing. But, you know, Radions and T5s are the big bulk of what we run here. You know, and then I can give you, you know, breakdown of bulbs and everything that we use. But for our SPS tanks, I'm just making sure that I'm giving them enough par. So like, again, and here's another caveat to certain things. T5 par is different from LED par, is different from halide par. You hear people talking and saying, oh, I was busting, you know, 800 par in my halide tank, and not realizing that 800 par from an LED is going to straight burn your corals out. So it's understanding the lighting does, it's a little bit different, and you got to be able, especially when you're combining these lighting, you want to be careful with it. And you can do that by renting a par meter. I know it's an, you know, expensive piece of equipment to buy, but you can always rent one out. If you can, you know, borrow it from somebody. I got one I lend out to other people. It's a really good way to see, you know, get a baseline of, you know, how much light your tank is getting. And in my opinion, once you get your tank set up, in your lighting setup how you want it, it's worth getting that baseline. because then you know where your corals can go in that tank safely, and you're not going to be, hey man, I plopped this at the top and all of a sudden it's turning white and I don't know why. So yeah, that's one pillar. So lighting, obviously, so flow would be another one of those pillars, that the proper flow for your coral is going to be able to keep the detritus off of them, bring them nutrients, clean them off, just keeping your coral overall healthy. And you can, again, everybody's budget needs are different, and what we can afford. It is an expensive hobby, and I'll be the first to tell you, I've done a whole bunch of stuff used. I've done jabals on a whole lot. I tried to be smart on where I save, but I also try not to chinch and be cheap on the equipment that I give to my, bring for my coral. Because realistically, cheap in, cheap out. And it's not always going to be true expensive in, expensive out, but you got to understand that there is certain quality where I personally wouldn't tone back. But like, for instance, you don't have to go out and buy a really expensive MP 60 or MP 40, when you can get a couple of jabals and you can put them on opposite sides of your tank and use a cheap timer and time them on and off. That way you're simulating that back and forth flow, and you're not having to spend $800, $1,500, depending on how deep you really want to go into it. So you can go on Amazon, pick yourself up a jabal, what do they call them? There's a bunch of different versions of them, but you spend $90 on them. So $90 and a timer, and look at that. You got yourself awesome, flow going back and forth. And that's what I've done in my tanks here. I can't afford to go buy MP60s and throw them in all the tank as much as I would love to, or pan arrays, even though that's my new kick. I love those things. But I can be smart with how I utilize my equipment, and with a little bit of planning and with a little bit of like insight, like, hey man, maybe what if I try this, and just screwing around, I'm able to kind of get around some things where cost would normally be my, hey, I can't do that. So again, just be smart with your reefing. And back to the point of flow is, hey, you try to give your coral the proper amount of flow for what you're running in your tank. And I can't run. I'll show you the tanks later, but I've had to tone down my flow and downsize my pumps in my LPS tank as my livestock has changed, because it's just blasting too much flow in there. And so it's not always and things have changed as the reef has matured as well. So I've had to add to, take away from, and just, I got to mature with my methodology as my reef matures as well. So yeah, hey, proper flow is a very, very important thing, and it doesn't have to be overthought, but take your time and try to plan that one out. And again, this is all planning, because the more planning you guys can do up front with your tank, the less headache you're going to have on the backside, either trying to rework it, spend money reworking, losing coral. I think of these are all like cha-ching, cha-ching. Every time, you think you're saving money on something sometimes, and sometimes maybe you're really not. Maybe you're depriving your coral of something they really do need, Another one.
So real quick, before you move on from flow, do you think that gallons per hour is greater than variability? So how do you set up SPS?
I played with both. I've kind of messed with like different, like I have the Jabal cross flows, like the what do they call them, the SCP 180s. And then the Jabal PP20s is the model as well. So that's usually what I've run. And then I've gotten on to like Panerai ECM 63s, because just the needs are greater. But I've made like that 8 foot, it's an 8 by 2 by 30 inches, that SPS tank in the background. I had a successful flow pattern by having just 2 gyres up top and 2 direct flows on the bottom. And they would just time on and off, like that. That way I would have a pushing on the top and the bottom, and then it would swap. And realistically, that was enough for that tank to be happy. I wasn't blasting flow, but it was enough variability to keep my SPS generally clean. But it wasn't enough for what I needed, what I really wanted. So I've upgraded and I've changed since then because, you know, I'm dabbling in that, you know, that level. So I'm like, I kind of need to, you know, give my animal, I feel like I need to give my animals better quality flow that if I can, why not, you know?
Yeah, it sounds like you found a good balance.
Yeah, you know, it's the cost effectiveness and then, you know, the quality. And again, I'm all about, dude, I'll take Jabals any day of the week just because I can go buy them off Amazon for, you know, 60 to 190, $180, $190. And I can eat that cost so much easier. And especially when I'm spreading it out through tanks. It's a much easier cost to eat than getting a freaking, you know, Panerai ECM 63, which brand new is what, 2,200 bucks, you know, but it's then I can sit here and I can show you like that pump, while it would be totally out of the price range for anybody, somebody would look at that and be like, I don't fucking need that. Excuse my language. I'm a Marine veteran, so I tend to curse a little bit, sometimes it slips out. So, but I can sit here and show you that the quality that that pump puts out because of the way it's designed is beneficial for these reasons. And I need that because my tank has finally grown into the point that I can't do anything else. And especially if I want to keep it a display tank and not be shoving pumps all over the place in my viewing areas, I need to change up what it is that I'm doing. So yeah, like I said, I can always show you guys these as we're walking through later. I'll take questions on them, show you exactly how it is we're timing them on and off. Flow is one of those weird things. It's not easy, and especially when you're making it work in like a little glass box, it's definitely not easy, you know. So, but yeah, anything else on flow, and then we'll move on. All right. So, the next
Lacey,
pillar.
Lacey had a question, right, Lacey?
Let's see, what was it?
Yeah, sorry, I just put it in the chat.
Well,
I was just asking, what flow do you like? For like true mixed reefs that have everything from like mushrooms to SPS. Like, how do you make that work?
It's an artwork. I mean, realistically, you're gonna have to look at your tank and you're gonna have to decide where you want your stuff, and then it's gonna be sticking your pumps in there, and it's gonna be messing with the different flow patterns and messing with the directions because you know, you may want something in a certain spot, and then you throw that pump on it, and you're like, yo, this is not working. Like I can't do this here, you know. And I've run into that too. So it's gonna be it's a thing you're gonna have to adapt to in your own tank and decide, like, do you want to only run a pump on the back glass because you don't want to be looking at pumps everywhere, or are you okay with running multiple pumps on the side? Like, it's really your personal preference, and then you can kind of build on it from there.
Yeah, I think it changes as they grow too.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
You're totally right. And again,
I feel like flow never stops. It's always literally moving.
Yep.
Like...
Yep. And you could, and how easy it is for them to get caught up in, you know, that same flow pattern that happens every single day. And then I see the coral start growing in certain ways where I'm like, yeah, that's not even, you know, it's just not evenly growing out, or it might be growing down, or, you know, I'm blasting flow in the center of that tank and I'm watching some of my acros start to, you know, they're tables, but instead of tabling out, they're tabling down. So they're, you know, it's just, I'm watching the behavior of some of these things change as the flow changes as well. So yeah, it's going to be, you're totally right. Just
Tommy said sold 43.
I got my TikTok people in here. Look, I will say this. I never would have thought TikTok has a good reefing community, but for real, TikTok has a great reefing community. There's a lot of weird people on there too, I will say, but I mean, this is the world, and welcome to it, you know. But no, for all joking aside, we got an awesome community. And that's the reason we're on here. Like, heck, I wouldn't have come across you, Elisa, or Happy on here Acro and and Acro, I ran into him, sometime down the, in the past, and then all of a sudden we're meeting on here again. So it's nice. I like closing the gap with everybody in here.
Corey said, thanks for your service, and thanks for your service.
Appreciate you. Like I said, I can appreciate it now because there's a lot of things in that past that I can see, and I tell her like just things that I can carry over into the business and I can carry over into ethically and everything else. I mean, it's just it's part of who we are, But I do appreciate it. So, anybody else in there, and then we can move on to water quality, because that's a fun one. All right. So one of the other pillars that we got is water quality, and that is a big one because obviously it encompasses a lot. Your corals are constantly in the ocean getting supplied by nature, perfection all the time. It's constantly it's feeding the coral and then constantly blowing everything away at the same exact time and keeping the water absolutely clean. And it's hard for us to do that. I have a problem with it. I'll tell you this much, like I have a problem balancing my nutrients in my tanks and trying to keep these coral happy. And it's not easy sometimes. And again, I have a deep respect for Mother Nature because it happens so easily, and man, we can screw it up quick, whether it be in our tanks or out in the ocean. But your chemistry, and especially, and I'll remind you guys too, as you guys are listening to this, don't be afraid to reach out to me on the side too. We're always happy to answer questions. But these are things that you guys can take and teach to other people and put into perspective, because again, so much information, and it's easy to get lost in all this information out there. And like sometimes, people get overwhelmed and they're like, where do I start? And this is a good way to put it to them. Be like, hey, look, you look at it like pillars. Each of these pillars is going to make a successful reef tank for you. And if you can hit all those things, not just one, not just two, but all of them, then you're going to have this beautiful tank, and just patience too. But yeah, I take seriously when we learn this stuff, and I also take seriously when I run my mouth and I, tell you guys this. I always say, look, I don't say what I say lightly, and I try to always say with a caveat, like I still screw up, so do your own research. But hey, at least you can take this and you can put it into perspective for other people to not have such a hard time understanding this. But like chemistry, that's another big one where a lot of people get in, and I'll even tell you, like when I first got my tanks, I had no idea what alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, pH, dosing. I didn't know what any of that shit was. PO4, NO3. I'm looking like this is Chinese to me. And so, I mean, I'll tell you, she used to go to work in the morning, and I'd sit down and I'd have my coffee and I'd get on VRS and I'd have my smoke and I'd be sitting there reading. And, hey, I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm burning my ganj, and I'm reading, and I'm enjoying myself, but I'm learning and I'm engaged. And this is what I love doing. And every single morning I'm getting up and I'm learning. And it's fun for me because I'm taking in all this information and trying to, again, actively make a wonderful reef tank out of it. And then, but yeah, so like, let's say your chemistry. I didn't know what calcium was. So obviously when you look at your chemistry, I would say the big three you want to tell people is keep your alkalinity stable, your calcium, keep it stable, but it's not as important to track. And again, take what I say with a caveat. I'm not saying don't track it. All these things are important, but if you're going to put it in my opinion, importance, keep your alkalinity stable all times. First and foremost, don't chase nothing else. Chase your alkalinity. Anything else will follow from that generally. Then focus on your calcium, because your calcium is going to have a hand with growing your coral with your alkalinity. The same thing is your magnesium is going to have an effect on those three things. They all work together. So it's not just do this and you can have a successful tank, but realizing that they're all building blocks to understanding, like you need all these things at once. But your alkalinity, your calcium, your magnesium, make sure you're tracking those. your nutrients, your phosphates and your nitrates. These are the things that are breaking down in your water column, your fish poop, your food, things like that. But this is essentially what your bacteria is eating in your tank. This is essentially what your corals ultimately breaking down and eating in your tank. So again, keeping your phosphates and your nitrates stable is going to be important. Again, I screw it up. My coral gets mad at me and turns different colors that it's supposed to be, mostly brown, or it dies whenever I do things like go and dump a whole bunch of food in there that's not supposed to be in there, or I happen to get lazy and complacent and I forget to fill up a kalkwasser container, which is, filling my, giving my systems the alkalinity that they need. And any of these little mistakes can potentially make your coral mad and kill them. So again, it's a big, going back to that, it's a big responsibility what you guys are doing here. Don't take it lightly, but it's not the hardest thing in the world. It's easy to grasp for you guys, and don't be scared of it. But again, your nutrients is what you're feeding, what your fish are breaking down. Your fish are eating algae, your fish are eating the shrimp that you feed them. If you're putting in reefroids into your tank and you have no idea why your PO4 is spiking up, reefroids ads, yeah, I've done it. So, you learn that these things, we've all done that in one way or another. And it's like funny because I get people that ask me like, hey, my stuff's dying or doesn't look good. I'm like, what are you feeding? I'm asking these questions and they're telling me, oh, I've been dumping in reefroids. I'm like, bingo, I can already tell right there. Were you doing this much? How often were you doing it? Oh, I was doing it once a day. Okay, well, there you go. That's why. You got to give your time, your corals time to break this down, your system time to break this down. And then, caveat off that, like your filtration is going to be another one of those things. So that's going to help take out and balance that nutrient. So obviously you guys see filter socks, filter floss, roller mats, skimmers, refugiums. These are all ways to remove nutrients from your system that are building up. That way your coral stays stable. That the parameters are stable, your coral's feeding properly, and it's not, disliking the changes that you're giving it, right? So these are all things, and you guys can use any combination of these things. And another thing I get people say, hey, why do I got dinos all the time? And all of a sudden I had a buddy do this, he's like, hey man, I got dinos and I don't know why. And he's running a skimmer, he's running a filter socks, and then on top of that, he was using Fosban. So, or GFO, excuse me. So, hey man, GFO pulls the phosphates out of your water, bro, you got to take that stuff out of your tank. And he was running it on a reactor too, which is even more, it's more efficient at that point. So he's giving himself a problem by taking all the nutrients out of his system that is technically supposed to be keeping his dinoflagellates in check. Because there's another one, I keep going down little rabbit holes. Just as a caveat, dinoflagellates exist in all your guys' systems. I know you guys hear about it. I know everybody's like, I've never gotten dinos. Look, dinos exist in your systems. The only reason you don't see it is because your bacteria keeps it in check. The only time you see those bad bacteria is when they get out of check. So if you're starting to have these issues, for instance, you're having bad algae blooms, you're having dinoflagellate blooms, look at what you're running in your tank. Look at your tank as a balance. What food are you putting in? What nutrients are you taking out? What water quality ultimately are you giving your coral for this stuff to happen in your tank? So be mindful of each thing. There's a tool for the job. There's always a tool for the job. And even to take one deeper, bacteria can be used as a tool for feeding your corals, nutrient control, just overall tank health, breaking down, and supporting the processes that happen in your tank. And bacteria is something that we don't talk about a whole lot. That's another rabbit hole I've gone down with focusing on my systems with a better bacteria base, because I've dealt with bad blooms, algae, dino blooms, cyano blooms, all the gambit of stuff. And I need to find a better balance in my system. So if you guys are dealing with that same thing, you guys can start looking and saying, hey, do your problem solving. Say, hey, You know, if I got this stringy stuff in my system, okay, let me identify it. Hey, it looks like dinos. All right, well, how do I fight dinos? All right, you know, I'm talking to all these people, but you know, again, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and some ways may not work. Some ways may work better than others, but there's a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of different methodology, and if you guys ever get lost in it, find a mentor, and reach out to a mentor. And to that point, don't get too many mentors. You know, it's really easy for people to start reading and hearing things from like 10 different people and then start trying to implement 10 different things. And maybe you guys don't need to be doing that. Maybe you just need to find like one or two people you really, really trust and ask to look at their tanks. You know, if you ask to look at if they're giving you information and you ask to look at their tanks and this is just me personally, again, not knocking nobody. Everybody's got their different phases. Maybe they got a brand new tank. Maybe they just crashed their tank, but like ask to see somebody's tank if they're giving you a knowledge base. And that's a really good way to see if they know what they're talking about. It may not always be true, but if somebody, you know, a lot of the times I'm hearing all the time, oh, I've been reefing for 20 years and, you know, nobody listens to me. And then I see this person's tank and it just doesn't look like a 20-year reefing veteran's tank, you know, and maybe some other people, again, maybe you never, you've been reefing for 20 years and maybe you got stagnant in your knowledge base or your hobby, or maybe you just like keeping certain things, you know. But again, you know, you got to stay in your lane on what information you're passing, because it's easy. I see people start stepping out of their lanes, and a lot of people just like being heard to be heard. And unfortunately, I see it start leading reefers in the wrong direction. So again, find a mentor, find one or two people that you trust. And like I did, I found a couple people that I liked and I emulated their systems. I looked at what they were doing and I said, what are you doing to have success? Because obviously you're doing something right. And then what I'm doing ain't working, or what I'm doing, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So let me just walk in your steps and implement what you have. And then maybe I'll grasp it as I'm implementing it. It's like, you know, monkey see, monkey do. I'm gonna learn as I'm doing. And I've learned a lot of that, you know. So I'll get, you know, shout out to, you know, local reefer around here, man. Same thing. I saw his SPS systems and I fell in love with SPS, and I emulated his systems and how he ran his stuff. And then as I got more mature in my reefing journey, I've changed those methodologies. I've tried different things. I formulated my own methodology, but not before I was comfortable with learning something stable that makes things live, you know, because ultimately, like, you want these things to live, and you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself and thinking that, you know, you're the end all be all of knowledge in the world, because you ain't. And, you know, even as much as we know, we're still learning and we're still wrong a lot, you know? So, you know, back to, like I said, bacteria is one of those things that you can use as nutrients, supporting your tank, having a healthy tank. I can tell you guys things that I've used over time, you know. Let's see, like I said, filtration, we went through, temperature. Personally, me, like I said, reefs running at a variety of temperatures. I like keeping mine around 76 to 78. I don't like going higher than 79. And if it's higher than 80, I'm freaking out a little bit. So stable temperature. Again, your reef runs what, 73 to 84 in the world, so it's a wide range of things, but I like kind of keeping in that 76. So I realize my tanks, I'm putting off a lot of heat, you know. Those T5s and those LEDs crank out a lot of heat in the house. So we've done a lot of upgrades on the house too to kind of mitigate that issue, and especially like the humidity in the house and all that other stuff. But yeah, we've definitely done a bit with that.
So what
Yeah,
do you,
I was gonna ask about the humidity. I mean, gosh, you guys have such a, I mean, how many gallons of water you running through your house?
In the house, we're at 2,600, 2,700, something like that.
What do
So
you do? How do you deal with it?
so we have a central AC that we use. So that takes care of the bulk of it. We did end up getting a dehumidifier, like one of those little standalones, and you'd be shocked how much freaking water that thing pulls out. It's wild, and especially we worry a little bit being here in South Florida. It's hot in the summertime. It's very, very humid a lot. So like I worry about my AC, and like that's another thing, we had our AC go down last year in the middle of the summertime, and now I'm prepping to do a backup AC unit because where's my weak points? If we get a hurricane, I got a diesel generator. If I lose my AC, I'm screwed. So I'm having to look into different things but heat management in the house also. Over the garage, my first upgrade was I laid out rollout foam or the fiberglass, the rollout fiberglass insulation. Then we actually had somebody come in and do spray and insulation in the attic throughout the whole house. And then we had some damage on our roof, and we were luckily able to have our insurance cover we had a metal roof installed. And actually that metal roof helps out with the heat a good amount too. So, between all those things, we had to get a new AC unit, got a chance to upgrade that a little bit, get a larger one. And doing all that in the house has really helped. But it's still that little thing in the back of my mind where I'm like, I don't feel comfortable, and that's why we're actually my roofer out of all things. And this is something for you guys, redundancies for your reef. Everybody talks about battery packs. Everybody talks about all this stuff. Like I said, we live in South Florida, so we got to worry about hurricanes and shit like that. I've grown up with it, so I've been, 2 weeks without power. You can't get nothing in. So I got to look at and say, what is the worst case scenario that if we lose power to our house, we've invested in a diesel generator? And that made sense for us for our business. But like, if you own your own home, again, I'll put this to anybody. You don't want to lose your AC. You definitely don't want to lose your animals. And we were actually able to find a diesel generator, a 20 kilowatt diesel generator on wheels with a 25-gallon self-contained diesel container inside, and it was $9,000. And realistically, something to power your entire house, just in case shit hits the fan. And if you're looking at the cost of your house, $9,000 ain't much for an upgrade on your house. And especially $9,000 definitely ain't that much when you guys be spending what you spending on some of these coral. I see some of you in here. So look, I'll be the first to tell you, like, I'll go out and blast money at coral all day, but then I'll be kind of negligent and I'll put off getting a backup AC. So I'll be the first to tell you I do dumb shit like that too. But I'm doing my best to juggle all those as a business, and we do what we can. So just to give you guys like a heads up, like this is what we do. We got a diesel generator for our house with a transfer switch. That way, if God forbid we ever lose power here, I can go out and I can throw that transfer switch and bring my whole house back online. And some of you like running propane. I chose not to go with propane. I chose to go with diesel because in my experience, living my whole life in Florida, anytime hurricanes hit, I have never seen a gas station run out of diesel. And I have a diesel truck, so it works out easily too. But gas stations don't run out of diesel. And, gas stations will be backed up, miles and miles for gas, but that diesel pump will be empty. And I also think with propane, if the hurricane is so bad to where they cannot get a propane truck to my property, then I'm out of luck. So I'm reliant on somebody else, another company to come bring me propane if I run out. And I also don't want to, put in the freaking city permits and dig a whole big container outside. Like I put down, the little bricks, and since it's a temporary structure, I threw it on the side of my house and threw a generator on it, and I'm good. So, and also on top of that, I have 100-gallon fuel transfer tank. I could just literally throw in the back of my truck, fill up with diesel at the gas the gas station down the street, and I could drive back to my house and start, filling in 25 gallons at a time. And at that point, I got weeks and weeks and weeks of gas for my livestock. And what's the worst case scenario? Maybe I got to go sit in line for a day, and get gas. So you just think about these things as what happens worst case scenario if it all goes to shit. The point to a AC unit. My roofer actually told me, he's like, hey man, he has a trailer that he has one of those what are they, the RV units or the mobile home unit all in one AC units. It's just one vent in and one vent out. And he told me, he said, hey man, get a vent and plug, worst case scenario, you lose your AC, roll that trailer right up to one of your windows and plug one vent into one window and plug one vent into the other. And now you have air circulating in your house again. So, and you can actually find these all-in-one RV, AC units or mobile home units. I've seen them online for anywhere from $750 to $3,000. And you're telling me for a backup AC unit for your entire house. So again, I'll go back and say that. What's your investment worth to you? And for us, our investment is worth everything to us because we make a living off of it, but we love our animals too. So some of you can run on a generator. Some of you can, again, depending on where you are. I've seen people in Texas, with the snowstorms and the power outages get wiped out because you guys don't have heat in your house. So again, the Carolinas, there's another one, it's disaster can happen anywhere. Be mindful of what's the worst case scenario and plan for that. And again, if you love your animals, this shit means the world to me. So I'm going to try to give them the best that they can. So, but yeah, moving on from that. Oh, pH is the other one I didn't really talk about with you guys. pH, there's a big conversation around it. And I'll tell you my personal experience is stable pH is good. Keep your pH stable. Simply just don't let it drop below 7.7. My understanding is below 7.7, the water gets too acidity and your coral doesn't grow anymore. If you guys ever look at your pH trend, if you guys have any kind of monitoring systems, you look at pH every day when your coral is photosynthesizing as your tank breathing in and breathing out. So as your coral is photosynthesizing, your pH rises. And as it's peaking over, your lights are starting to go off and then your tank is breathing out and it does that for the night. It goes down, comes back up. So you guys don't have to worry if you guys are seeing different, measurements of your pH. Understand that your tank is breathing. That's the best way for me to simplify it. My experience, coral grows better at higher pH. Just saying, SPS grows a heck of a lot better for me at higher pH. I try to run, again, stable 8.4 is a good industry standard for what we're doing, 8.2 to 8.4. I've had my systems run up to 9. So I'm not saying that's a good thing, but I didn't see any negative effects. So I was using different things like Kalkwasser and stuff like that, which do increase your pH as well. But again, stable pH, try not to chase that number as much, but be cognizant of it. Don't let it go too low. And you guys can see, you guys can do your own little experiment. If you got a pH, some way to measure your pH, think about it, the oxygen level in your tank, more or less. And you can notice where you can go and open up a window and you'll see your pH start rising really quick because you're getting a lot of nice fresh air into the house. Or if you have a lot of people in your house, everybody's breathing all that oxygen in the house, and your coral, you'll notice where your pH will be a little bit lower than what it's used to. So you can start to understand how these things are in the atmosphere do affect your coral as well. Shit, man, I've seen where we get storms coming through or atmosphere changes, and I'll watch my pH change in my tanks. It'll be doing its thing for a while, and then all of a sudden we get some kind of storm or atmospheric pressure change, and all of a sudden it'll just stagnate. And it won't go high where it's supposed to be up here, and then it just does this for a day. And it's one of those things that pay attention. If you see your tank is going to do something, it's going to do what it does every single day, generally the same. If you see something change, if you see parameters change, if you see whatever it is, something different, you see your stuff sucked in. Start looking into your tank and start trying to get an idea of, it's a little warning sign to say, hey, go peek at your stuff, because you may find something wrong, But yeah, moving on from that, I guess I was gonna say, okay, so husbandry is another one, and the lady that was on earlier, she was saying her angel eats her, you know, you eat your coral. There's a wonderful example of husbandry. Yo, you guys, you got to realize that this is a massive reef, or your coral is growing. You got stuff that eats coral. You got fish that eat coral. You got pests that eat coral. But speaking on the thing of husbandry, knowing what animals you want to keep, and knowing what fish you want to keep, and knowing how they all play nice with each other. Because again, if you guys know, some fish eat corals, some corals very aggressive and stings other corals. So when you're teaching somebody, back to the whole pillars of reefing thing, when you're giving somebody this and you're telling them, hey man, your lighting is important, your flow is important, your chemistry is important, your husbandry is important too, because your animals are all going to have a play in how they help you maintain your tank. So like where you're over there, you're feeding your fish are pooping, your poop is ultimately feeding your coral in your tank, right? You're feeding your tangs, and your tangs are doing all that, but your tangs are actively eating your algae. Your hermit crabs are actively eating your algae. You know, you have all these things working together to you know, make a happy tank and make your corals thrive. Kind of sucks when you get a copper band butterfly and you drop a scully in there, and then your copper band butterfly goes over and nips a big old thing right out of the mouth of the scully and kills it and makes it the most expensive meal it's ever had. You learn that husbandry is important, especially when you don't want to lose coral. And you know, sometimes you got coral that eats fish. You got your big old. You got your. Oh yeah, that's you.
Oh,
the wife just got on. So yeah, like you got coral that eats fish. You guys got carpet nems or something like that. Hey man, sometimes you might get a fish. You like this carpet nem, but be cognizant that your fish might get scared and go jump into that carpet nem or touch it by accident. Those things are really sticky, and I've seen people's carpet nems eat their fish. So you just got to keep in mind that all these things, you know, as you're building your tank, again, keep in mind how you want to build your tank, what you want to fill it with, and understand that. Do research on whatever you're getting ready to put in your tank. Because again, sometimes it's a hard lesson learned when you put this thing in there and then it eats a really expensive coral. And then now you got to go through the headache of trying to pull this fish out of your tank. You know, so I've been there. It sucks, and it gets worse with bigger tanks, but no matter the size of it, it sucks when you got to go tear down your entire freaking scape and everything that you worked so hard on, and you got to chase this one fish around because you refuse to let him eat anything else. You know, again, happened to us multiple times. I had a copper band do that recently. He was in my LPS tank, was totally fine for 2 years. And I happened to absorb another reefer's livestock. And as soon as he got a whole bunch of acans and scallies, and I put that new stuff in there, and it was something with the new coral, he just started picking at my old coral. And there was the thing is, I now had to remove that copper band from that tank, because it's either I keep the copper band or I keep my corals in there, and I can move him to another tank, you know? So again, you know, be cognizant of that. Another thing I will say, again, and I've hit on it a couple times, is reef with ethics. I see a lot of people not have any ethics, not understand ethics, and not know how to apply ethics in this hobby, and especially not know how to, identify it when you see it. Because again, a lot of knowledge base out there. There's a lot of nuances out there, and it's a lot for us to pick through. And we may sit here and, you know, like me, or, you know, a couple other people I know that I engage with, like Acro. I talk with Acro all the time. I'll name drop him, but there's another wonderful wealth of knowledge. But, you know, we've seen where ethical reefing that's good for your animals. And then we've seen unethical reefing that is either not good for your animals, just about money, not good for the hobby. And there's a balance with all that. But ultimately, when you guys really, you know, it comes down to it, it's for the animals. Like, don't be dicks. You know, we're doing an amazing thing here. Don't be irresponsible with these animals. And if you feel like you're going to be irresponsible, step your game up or find another hobby. And I hate to say, if that's a tough thing to say, but I love these animals. And if some people don't take this seriously, then, I mean, there's some people, again, I'm not going to knock them for their lack of knowledge base. I'll never knock anybody for trying, but I have, for instance, I'll give you a story. I used to do tank maintenance for my local store around here, and with one of my best friends. And we went to a guy's house, and this guy had beautiful tank, beautiful mansion, a lot of money and everything. And he had no concept of caring for his animals. And he killed a whole bunch of them one time. Like he did something really responsible. He killed his fish. And his response when we spoke with him was, "Oh, I'll just go buy another one." And my buddy looked at me afterwards, like, you know, kind of in the side, and he's like, "Does he say that about his dogs?" You know? And the thing is, like, it puts it into perspective, like, you know, it's not just, hey, I'll just go buy another one. It's, hey, we are taking a big responsibility in doing this. Don't be uncaring about it, because on top of that, you guys got to realize that my wife will tell you, like, her view on this hobby before getting into it, and she still has some form, a little bit of a view on it, but she don't like some of it. And I get it. Like, when you start looking at how people do things, and some of it's kind of meh, it kind of makes you not like it. But then again, I've told her that with the bad comes the good, and with the nastiness that some people have, we got a lot of good that comes out of the hobby, and people see us as the ambassadors to this hobby. So when you guys are being, when I got, so Tommy knows about the meh chalice, but when you guys are being ambassadors to the hobby, if this dude would say that to somebody else, they would probably look at that and be like, man, like, is that really like how you view the hobby? Like, why are you taking this stuff out of the ocean if you're just feeling like you're going to kill it and just go buy another one? So again, have a little bit of ethics in this and take some responsibility that, we're doing something cool. And again, these are our animals, and as a hobbyist, we have ethics. Again, don't be irresponsible as a hobbyist, but even the vendors. And this is another thing I see. And again, not throwing shade around, but at least I can pull from different business models that I see with other vendors, and I can say, this is what I like doing, and this is what I don't like. I can say, as a vendor, you guys see my ethics as something highly important, and I think it's vastly important for me to have good ethics bringing to you guys, because again, you guys want to know that I'm taking care of these animals and bringing you guys healthy animals. B, you guys are trusting me with your money, your hard-earned money and finances, and like, you guys are funding our life to be able to do this. So at the end of the day, I do understand that this hobby is it's not a necessity. This is something that with when finances get hard, sometimes it ain't that easy to keep up. So we understand as vendors, like, we want to treat you guys right. We never want to screw anybody over. We never want to make you feel like we're not taking care of our animals, and we want to be absolutely transparent, like a lot of you have seen. I'll tell you anything and everything about what goes on in our tanks. I'll get you on a Zoom call or a TikTok call, and I'll walk you through every bit of algae that I have, aptasia that I have, if you guys want to see it. And I'll tell you every pest that I've gotten, and I'll tell you how I've overcome it. And I can tell you how I've treated it, and I can tell you what you guys should look for. That way, if God forbid you guys ever come across some pest that nobody talks about, and then all of a sudden you're wondering what the hell it is, and then you're mad at the vendor that gave it to you. You're mad because you have no idea what it is, and it just gives you a sour. You're losing your livestock, and it's this big snowball effect, which can be prevented with good ethics, good knowledge base, and us as vendors, and we're hobbyists too. Like, I'll tell you that at the end of the day, as much as we are vendors, I'm still a fucking hobbyist. I'll go buy from the next vendor. I'll hit the next dude up and praise him. Shit, man, I was just telling Battle Corals. That's another guy, Adam Derrickson. I based my ethics around how he handles his coral, and I'll tell you that up front. So shout out to Adam Derrickson. You want some beautiful SPS? Go talk to that man, because he's showing success in ways that has inspired me, and he's taking care of customers, and he's taking care of me as a customer in a way that inspires me to bring that same thing to you guys. So like, you know, again, this is something I keep in mind, and I want to be able to pass that on, because the hobby is only as good as we make it. And again, we're the next person, like we're training our replacements all the time. You know, you're training that next reefer that's coming in, and you're giving them the view of what this hobby is. So don't give them a shitty view of this, and don't make them think that what this hobby is just a bunch of nasty people. Like, you know, be good people in this. You know, that's all we could ever ask for. Treat people right and treat your animals right. Let's see. I know I said find a mentor, but again, man, find people that you like, one or two, and emulate them, you know, and then make your methodology, form your methodology off of that. Another thing to the ethics, and this is something we've talked about, wild corals versus mariculture corals versus aquaculture corals. That's something that conversation comes up all the time. So if you guys can understand what it is, you guys know what it is that you're looking for when you're buying from a vendor, when you're buying from a store, when you're getting from your friend, you know, whatever it is, like understanding these things and differentiating your coral will have a great impact on how you understand. I don't know. I hear somebody. I'm hearing echo. But so yeah. Oh, hi Joe. How you doing, man? So yeah, so like so hey, look, you got wild collection, right? You got stuff that you get pulled right out of the ocean, gets shipped here. You guys get it in your tank. You got mariculture stuff gets pulled out of the ocean, gets set in a tank over there in Indonesia or Australia, and gets grown on the land, but it's usually probably grown right next to the water. Then you got aquaculture, which I would suggest is what you guys should personally shoot for is stuff that is grown in tank. The reason being is, yo, when you're going through those processes, you're pulling from the ocean, you're pulling from mariculture facilities. These places aren't used to captivity growing in these little boxes that we have. So you gotta realize that you're taking these animals from perfection. You're taking these, and even these mariculture facilities, a lot of them, they're able to pump in water from the ocean in their facility, give them the stuff that they need, and then pump the shit back out, you know? We're not really able to do that too much here. So whenever you take that coral from getting all this wonderful water quality, getting, you know, the natural sunlight, and you're taking it and you're slapping it under LEDs, and then you're feeding it a whole bunch, and it's not used to getting fed all the time like that, or it is used to getting fed and you're just not feeding it enough. You know, there's you know, Indonesian gonis are like that, you know, gonoporas. They're used to eating a whole bunch. So you get these beautiful rainbow Indonesian gonis, and they don't survive in our tanks because when you look at the water that they come from, it looks like tea. So they're able to get this food all the time, whereas we can't provide that without what? Chumming our tanks up. So then you're down the next rabbit hole of how do you feed enough to pull enough out? So, I saw a question pop up in there. I personally think aquaculture is going to be better overall any day of the week, because this is an animal that is used to captivity. It is used to growing in a little box like we have. It is used to our lights that we have. It's used to our parameters that we run, and it's used to the mistreatment that we give it. So your wild colonies, your mariculture colonies are going to they're going to be more temperamental, and they're not going to be as forgiving if you guys screw a parameter up, you know. So, or these pieces have pests on them. So, you know, you get acros that have, you know, acro eating flatworms, or you get black bugs, white bugs, red bugs. You know, you get all these things that you can't see with your eye, but then they'll demolish a tank. You can get bugs on torches. You can get bugs on zoas. You got what? Zoa eating nudibranchs, Monty eating nudibranchs. You got the gambit of pests. And then even me, I'm learning about pests that I've never seen before. Apparently, I was talking to another really amazing, you know, SPS hobbyist, and he's showing me these little black flatworms that are acro-eating flatworms, but not the normal acro-eating flatworms. But you can't kill these black flatworms, but they're tiny. And these are the things that we're starting to see in the hobby, and this knowledge is it's not keeping up with the coral that's coming in. And then, you know, you guys are going to your store, for instance, and you're seeing like, hey man, my LFS has this really, really cheap colony here. And, you know, why is this other store or this other, vendor, they're charging like 3 times as much for that piece, but I can get this for like $30 over here. Not realizing that that thing may not be used to your tank. It may not be used to captivity. It may die really easily. It may have pests on it. So you may bomb your whole system out with a pest that you actually accidentally bring in. Whereas aquaculture, what we're doing and what we're trying to do is, hey, I like keeping my collection long term because I'm a coral hoarder. But I know my tanks, like there's some pieces I can tell you that I've had for 7 years and has been through crashes galore. And I can tell somebody that's buying from me, and I can say, yo, buy this piece because this piece won't die in your tank. Like you can mistreat it and you can do a whole bunch of shit to it and it ain't gonna die. You know, it may, don't get me wrong, it's still coral, but you may have, I've had people tell me they had a tank loss and it was our corals that survived. So these are things that we stand by our product with it. We understand there's still animals, but like we stand by the quality of our animals and we look at being aquaculture as being, you know, you may charge a little bit more, you may pay a little bit more, but you're going to get a better product. And that being said, when you guys are shopping for your coral, yo, ask the person that you're buying from what it is. Say, hey man, is this a mariculture piece? Is this an aquaculture piece? Like, do you have a mother colony of it? How long have you had your mother colony? How long has this thing been growing out in your tank? Like, you know, chances are, you know, again, everybody's places run different, but a few of my LFSs, a majority of their business model is just throughput. You know, they bring in corals, they don't grow any in-house, and they just bring it in from either, you know, tank shutdowns local, or they bring, imports in. So great prices, but it's just, you may get pests from it, and you know, you may get bacterial infection from it. You know, you may bring in something that is not good for your tank. So again, you know, it's being knowledgeable about where you guys are shopping, what you guys are buying, the coral that you guys are buying. You know, wild mariculture, aquaculture makes a huge difference, you know. And again, we do dabble in some maricultures and wilds, but the thing is, if I bring in a wild, like I'll show you guys a quarantine tank later. I got a few maricultures in there, but the thing is, I keep them for my collection and I'll grow them out for a long time, like over a year. And, you know, and sometimes they're doing really good. Maybe it's like 6 months and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna start chopping this thing and I'm gonna start growing extra pieces of it. And I'll start working on it. I'll take some pieces off and I'll grow multiple mother colonies. And when I feel like it's a solid piece that has taken multiple cuts, is multiple generations in, like I personally like to bring it to a point. If I could bring a piece in, and if I say, okay, I got mariculture piece, right? I grow a whole new piece out in tank, right? And then I chop that piece and I plant that on a plug. Anything that grows out after that is realistically grown in captivity. So to me, that's something that would be like my first generation of something that is truly grown in captivity. Any subsequent generation after that, to me, in my opinion, would be more hardy and just more stable. And I have pieces like that in my collection that I can attest to that. And again, this is just you know, circumstantial evidence. This is just stuff that I've seen. But hey, I got solid colonies, that multiple colonies that just grow like freaking crazy, that I've had for 6-7 years, you know? So yeah, you know, quality of corals is huge. Another tell you.
So let me interrupt you real quick. So if you get a colony that you like as a wild type, how long does it take for you to actually get it into your system and start selling it in aquaculture?
So when I first get this, so like recently, like I said, we just ran stuff through this system. We get them in, we dip them with potassium chloride, and then we treat them for 8 hours with interceptor. And then from there, we're able to drop them into the tank. They're in there for anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. You know, so I'm able, and sometimes I'd rather leave it longer, but sometimes I just have a lot of shit in there. So at least I try to go 2 weeks, because what I'll try to do, 2 to 3 weeks gives me an opportunity to dip 2 to 3 times for black bugs, red bugs, and white bugs. So use interceptor treatments. I usually try to do that with a 7-day egg cycle. And potassium, I'll monitor them and then potassium chloride them. That way, if they have any extra pests on them, you know, flatworms, anything like that. And then otherwise, it's just monitoring for bacteria. If I see anything close up, if I see anything in the quarantine system have any issues, degrade, or anything like that, I'm basically just monitoring for that time until I can get my whole round of dips in. And then from there, again, if I'm lazy, I might leave it in there longer, which I did a round. I probably left it in there for, a month and a half, 2 months last time. And some pieces have been in there for 2 months for this time. But otherwise that's kind of the quarantine that we'll run it through. And then we'll make sure anything we get in, we chop the base off, get rid of the base, replant it. That way it's nice and clean. And even at that, was that? Yeah. And then sit on it, sit on it for, like I said, usually my happy time is like a year. If I could sit on it for a year and I can let it grow out of my system, and then I can take a couple pieces and start chopping them up. That's kind of what my standard is.
So you're almost at 2 years till you're selling stuff online.
Pretty much.
So if they're buying aquaculture, you're doing all the work, and then when they get it from you, they're getting the confidence of something that's going to survive in a tank. It's pest free, and so that's the difference in price from aquaculture for somebody buying wild.
Yep. And so that's what we always like trying to tell to somebody. It's again, I've done it too, man. And this is where this will kind of lead into my next point of be self-sufficient, but be self-sufficient in your tank and know how to treat your own stuff, know how to take care of your own tank, know how to test for your own things. In short, like, my plain way of saying it, don't be lazy and let somebody else do it. How many people I knew that were just like, they didn't want to do anything, and then they just want to have a beautiful tank. And granted, we all do, but the reality of having these things is it don't work like that. This takes work. So, again, be self-sufficient on it. And, and that goes with doing some research on where you're getting your coral, because as much work as your vendor is doing, I'll even tell you this, like, we've had pests, and there's times where in the past where we've had pests slip through. And the thing is, we eat the cost of correcting that problem. So, like, I'll give you one, and this is just honest. We dealt with white and black bugs on our acros, and didn't know for the longest time. And I don't know how long we had them, but just it came about in such a way. And again, this is my lack of knowledge on the subject. It came about in such a way where we were doing a live, and a buddy of mine, he reached out and he said, "Hey, man, do you have this problem?" And I said, "I don't think so." And he sent me a video and he said, "Hey, look, like, just check this, just look into it." And lo and behold, as I start looking into it, I'm diagnosing it, and I'm like, "Yeah, I think I got bugs on this piece." So fast forward, I'm doing the research to source the interceptor. And what we spent, the first round that I spent was $800 to treat all the tanks in here. So for me to do that, I had to pull all my shrimp out of all these tanks. I had to treat all the tanks through different cycles for the period of, 2 to 3 weeks. And I had to spend the money up front to buy all the shit to do so. That way you guys ain't getting nasty stuff. So this is what I'm saying is we take that hit up front, and we do all the maintenance and the cost of trying to, like, keep our, animals healthy before it ever gets to you guys, because you guys don't want to get a coral in there, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Hey, why is this piece not doing good?" And then, "Oh man, this piece isn't doing good." And next thing you don't know why your tank's going down, and you also don't know how the knowledge base or the honesty from somebody on how to fix something like that. So this is why, like, we say it like, "Hey, we've dealt with acro-eating, we've dealt with acro-eating flatworms, euphyllia-eating flatworms, polyclad flatworms, your planarias. We've dealt with not red bugs yet, but white bugs and black bugs. But now we have the knowledge base to say, hey, if you got this problem, like when I talked with Elisa, she got flatworms, and I said, hey man, go get this food and start doing it like this. This just came out, and this is what you have to do it." And she corrected her problem real quick, whereas she would have been totally down for the count, or just like, hey man, this sucks, But yeah, it's important for us to be able to know that knowledge, pass that knowledge to you guys, and give you guys the information. Like, we're not gatekeepers of information. I'll tell you that much. Like, I hear that a lot. Like, a lot of this hobby used to be like, people gatekeeping information. And look, I'll never gatekeep on how to grow coral. I might not tell you all of our little business secrets of what we do and how we run things, but like, yo, if it comes down to growing coral, I'm an open book, man, because we have the same interest in mind in keeping these animals alive. So why would I hide that from them? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. And then on top of that, how quickly the turnover is in this hobby. I don't want to add to that. You know, I don't want to add to somebody getting mad because their tank crashes because I was irresponsible with my animals. And I just, you know, it's just not worth it, man. You know, so yeah, and then to that point earlier, I guess the last thing I had on my list was, yo, you, as much as you see in here, guys, I'll tell you this, I ain't rich. We ain't rich. We reef on a budget. And I will tell you, I ball on a budget. And when I say that, like all of the tanks in my house are secondhand. Like no freaking joke. I think the only tanks that aren't secondhand are the 2 blue tubs in the garage. Every single tank in this house is secondhand or third hand, or I don't even know how old the damn tank is, and it's been resealed how many times, and I just wonder when it's going to give out one day. So that's like that tank in the garage. But hey, man, like I said, you can reef on a budget, but just don't be cheap for the there's certain stuff there's certain things you don't want to chinch on for your animals. And just, yeah, you don't got to be a rich ass. You don't got to have all the money in the world. And again, I'm real. I talk real with you guys. But like I said, you don't got to be rich for this hobby. You just got to be smart. And
you have to love the hobby,
and
because it's a labor of love.
Oh yeah. And to that point, I mean, I will say I love this hobby, and she'll tell you that how many times I've crashed these tanks, and I mean, I've cried in front of these tanks, like bawled my eyes out, like and I got no shame in saying that. But there's times where I wanted to quit. No joke. Like I've questioned it. I'm like, you know what? You know, and she'll tell you, like, I crashed a whole tank, a system over there at one point. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this anymore. You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know. Because it's yeah, see, and we've all done it, man. You get into that loop, and like, and I'll give you a story, and I made it, and here's an example of how I made it worse for myself. When we got married, we just had so much going on, you know, and you know how it is. You got that shit. It's your mind is everywhere but your tank. And I let my dosers run dry in my tank. And by the time I realized what happened, it was our wedding day, and I filled the dosers back up. I did a water change, and I swung my system so bad that I watched. I mean, I'll tell you, you know, $10,000-$15,000 of stuff in front of me just go up and you know, Zuzantelli and ST and RTN and over the next 3 weeks. And I made it worse for myself because during that 3 weeks, I was moping, bro. I was sad. I tell you, I'll wake up and have my coffee and I'll cry in front of the tank. And I could have recovered better and probably saved more if I would have not been so into my feels and just got back on the horse faster, because during that time I let it swing lower and then I caused more death. And that was a big thing for me to admit to myself, where I was like, yeah, you know, the quicker you could recover and the quicker you can get out of your feels, and like, you know, the devastating loss that this sometimes brings to you, because trust me, sometimes I get it's a devastating loss, you know. Don't give up, you know, because
That's what makes you stronger in that hobby.
Yep.
Obviously, we all done it. We all been there.
Yep. There was a time when we were shipping stuff out and we were trying, she'll tell you again, I was shipping stuff out and I was killing everything. I mean, and I didn't know why. And I would ship a pack of anywhere from like 5 to 20 acros, and I would have death. And I'm like, and I would send packs over and over again to my customers, and God bless these people because they were so patient with me for it. And a lot of them really helped me out, try to pinpoint what it was. But my issue was a lack of oxygen. I ended up getting an oxygen tank, and I now fill all my coral with oxygen, and I have good survivability. I mean, I honestly, I got damn near 98, 99% survivability of my stuff going through. And even
yeah, and they're not just a little tiny one. You get a chunks. We love food chunks.
Yeah. And there's another thing that we try, like, you know, look, realistically, end of the day, like, you know, to the point of like, you know, we try to give you guys some better coral. Like, we try to give you guys bigger coral because I know the feeling that I get, like, trust me, like when I spend a whole lot of money on acros and everything and I get these like little nubs, I feel deflated. And it kind of sucks sometimes. Don't get me wrong. I understand like it's an industry standard, but I do also feel like if you let the culture continue that way, it's just simply going to continue that way. Like,
Because it wasn't like this before.
right.
It wasn't.
Right. And that's where I'm saying like, and again, I understand we got to find that balance because I'll say we do sometimes too, like, but sometimes we just don't have a large piece to cut. And that's just is what it is because it's a slow piece. But like when we can, we like to try and cut bigger pieces because we don't have to have that much. We don't have all the extra overhead of doing, we do this out of our house. So we don't have to have a second rent, second utilities, we don't got to pay no employees. Like we do this ourselves. So if we can provide better quality and bigger acros when we can, or just bigger coral in general at a better price, then at least it saves, it helps you guys out. That's realistically it. Because again, I feel deflated when I spend a lot of money and I get nubs. And even in my experience, nubs have a hard time surviving, and I get better survivability with larger pieces. And how many times I've killed nubs and I'm pissed because I'm like, that was a $400 nub, and that's, yet again, that's a $30 nub and I'm still pissed, because that's $30. And granted, money ain't easy these days.
Yeah,
So,
the good thing about that is you get a frag that's also started to grow. So it's a viable frag instead of something that was just glued and you have no idea. Sometimes I've had losses and it had nothing to do with what I did. It's just that was a brand new frag and it was under this parameters and I put it in my tank and all of a sudden it's changed.
Yep.
And it just wasn't established enough to do it. There's a couple questions in chat. Somebody wanted to know the difference between aquaculture and mariculture, and also wanted to know why you removed the shrimp from your tank.
Oh yeah, so I'll answer the second question first. You remove the shrimp from the tank because the interceptor actually kills your inverts. So your shrimp, your hermit crabs, they wipe them out. So unless you want to accidentally kill inadvertently kill your shrimp, take them out of the tank and remove them. Then wait a little while, wait a week, and then put them back in. So the back to the aquaculture, mariculture, again, the difference is just, mariculture is one that is, they take it out of the ocean, they have it on a facility next to the ocean, and they have big grow out tubs, and they're taking frags from the ocean, but they're growing it out in these tubs, and then they're shipping it to us. Aquaculture is going to be something that is grown entirely in our systems. Again, personal opinion. Aquacultures have better survivability. They're used to our systems. You got something that's grown under LEDs, T5s, used to swings, used to temperature, used to all the shit that we do to it. And then it's, again, just have better survivability and less pests, less chance of pests and everything on it too. So, and to your point too, about, the viable frags and that's something that, that question came up a while ago when we first started doing our lives. We weren't pushing through like a whole bunch of coral. Like we were doing good, over the last few years, but it was a lot of local stuff and a lot of shows and whatnot. Online sales were so, but it ain't nothing like when we do on TikTok Live. So now we are fine. Like we had the ability for our coral to be in our systems for a long time, like, anywhere from 2 to 8 months, some of my pieces are sitting in there. And a lot of my pieces are still like that. But now that I will say, like, from the business side and just being completely honest with you guys, like, we're getting busier. We're finding that we have to it's like a manufacturing process. If you look at it, like, to keep our quality up, we have to be able to have a process of how we work our coral through the system. Like, I have to have my mother colonies and I have to have multiple mother colonies. That way I don't cut them down too much too quickly. Or if God forbid, I lose one of those mother colonies from, stress or whatever, I'm not shit out of luck. And then I have to be able to have different levels of how old these frags are to be able to keep my quality up. So yeah, you guys are finally getting a piece that maybe is in my system for, 3-4 months and it's encrusted, but I assure you, I have 10 other pieces in my other tank that were just cut 2 weeks ago that are gonna, you know, kind of be ready by the time those are, you know, ready to, you know, my other ones are sold out. And as we're selling more, I do find that, you know, hey, we got to find our balance. You know, our quality goes down a little bit because we have to try and keep up with our manufacturing process, more or less. Throughput of coral ain't easy. And I'll say, like, and especially when we're trying to do it, again, ethically and take care of our animals and keep our animals long term, it's really easy to get caught up and like, I just want to make a whole bunch of money. And then I got to stop and think and like, hey, man, it ain't about money. It's about the animals. So I need to find a balance on the product, the animals, the health of my animals that I'm bringing to you guys, and realize that, you know what, I either need to slow it down a little bit or I need to expand to be able to accommodate the extra throughput. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. You see, like, I got tanks galore in the house. And it's, to me, in my mind, I'm thinking it's a production process. I love my corals. They're there in my displays. They're all growing, but I'm constantly thinking of 6 months to 1 year down the road. What am I growing out, and what am I eventually bringing to you? And then how do I maintain the quality and the health of the animals that I'm bringing to you right now and keep that quality there? So, I think that's kind
of. I personally have 2 questions. Number 1, I want to hear from Lindsay. No. And if she can wave a magic wand and change one thing about your business, what would she change? And 2 is, what shows are you going to, and where can we see you? Are you going to Rap Orlando, or where could we come and see you guys in person?
Oh, that's for you. He's talking to you.
Oh, I don't know how to answer that first question.
Yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, that's one thing we could change.
Yeah, one thing that we could change is probably build a facility in our backyard, which we've talked about several times. Actually, every day we talk about it. So it's a big goal of ours. And yes, we will be at Reefapalooza in April. Was it the end of April?
Yeah, April like 26, 27, something like that.
Yay!
Yep, we'll be there. But
that was kind of the point of the question. Would you prefer it being in your house, or would you prefer this business being in a separate facility? That's where I was trying to go with that, and see if she would if she would give up the goods.
No, I actually really do enjoy like waking up and being able to have my coffee, get ready for the morning, and then just like coming out here and just start working. You know, I did talk to Terrill about possibly getting a warehouse and, you know, taking it outside of the house, but he did have a point where, you know, we would be more money, and we'd be, you know, out of our house for a long period of time. We'd be there till like 10, 11 o'clock at night, you know, because those are the hours we have here. So we'd be missing our dogs and our daughters, and it's a lot easier to have it inside the house.
Yep.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear your opinion. Sorry for dragging you in.
No, to the caveat on hers, like, just, you know, we're you know, I always like, sometimes I like keeping quiet, because it's like, you know how it is. You never want to tell people plans until you do it, because, you know, you never know if life can happen. But we do have plans to build a facility on property. We live on a 1/4 acre lot, you know, so we got a decent little house, but, you know, obviously it's all full of fish tanks, and we want to expand. I don't want to get a warehouse, because it's like nightmare any way you look at it, I feel like, because again, like she said, like, the hours that we work, I mean, and it's odd hours too. It's just like, it's whenever it's necessary. And it's like when you just walk by a tank and you see something wrong, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and you got to whip out a ladder and jump in your tank. It doesn't, you know, we can't really do that at a warehouse. And then again, like, you know, you think of things like, if you're paying rent, you know, it's an increased cost. What, God forbid, if somebody ever raises the rent on that place, or just sells the building outright, and you got to go find somewhere else. So I go back to the whole thing of being self-sufficient. Is any investment, like our home is our investment. You know, we own our home. So why not put money into our property and our house? Because ultimately that's our wealth. You know, if we ever want to move or we ever want to do things, our wealth is wrapped up in our home. And so anything that we do here, if we want to do like a mother-in-law suite, but basically as big as the city is going to allow us, and we're going to pour a pad out back and then build a facility and make an aquaculture facility. That way,
Yeah,
Plus you're always there to observe your animals, though. I think that's the biggest thing. Like as a hobbyist, you're still the hobbyist. You're always there to observe your animals. If anything wrong at 11 or 12, you got to take care of it, right?
Yep, 100%.
You guys should see Lindsay in the morning when she does the calculation and some elements adjustments. She's like on top of it. She's got a big notepad. Everything's written down. She's on top of things.
Yep. And that's what we do. Like I said, we tag team this stuff. Like she, I handle a majority of like the tank maintenances and running it and chemistry and everything. She helps me out with, again, like filling stuff up. She was just cutting everything today. So she was running all the coral to the salt today, fragging everything. Like I let her have at that. She does all the corrections and the elements and everything. So
teamwork.
Yep. And then, I got to give it to her because all the social media and all the talking to people, that's that one right there. So if you guys are talking, even on my account, some of the time you're talking with her because because it's just how busy we are. And it takes that load off my plate because my mind is so, I run 5 systems here. So it's 11 tanks between 5 systems. And I'm running, a bunch of high-end SPS and a lot of high-end LPS. And the thing is like how quickly it is and it goes out of line. And to me, it's like, everything rides on our business at that point. And this is how we feed ourselves. This is how we pay our bills. This is how we put our daughters, through, get them stuff and put them through school and all this. So this is what we do for our life. And it becomes a lifestyle and we care so much about it because of that. And yeah, like to the point of like the house, like, we're pinching here. Don't get me wrong. Like we're always looking for like one more place to put a tank and we're literally tapped out. But like, trust me, we're always like, oh, can we fit like one more in here? But like, we can't move anywhere because again, we'd lose our asses on everything if we were to ever sell this house and move. We don't have the money to get anywhere bigger. Just the market ain't what it is. And again, we're here. We're blessed we have a home and a roof over our heads, and we're blessed we have a business and we're able to both stay home and do this, and it wasn't always like that. And it was a lot of, like I say it all the time. Like, I don't think people understand, like it's a lot of sacrifice. Like we've sacrificed a whole mess of shit over the last, 5 to 7 years to get to this point. And it was a lot of tears, a lot of being broke, a lot of, sometimes we fighting with each other because, the views are different. And again, you're mixing all this with, having to handle the everyday, stressors of your life built on top of this. And as you guys understand, like, when life happens, the tank is the first thing to go. So like we've had, deaths in the family, absolutely tragic events that would tear families apart left and right 10 times over. And we've been through that in the process of our reefing journey. And again, the financial thing of getting here and building this, and, we've come a long way. So that's when we tell people like, everybody's like, oh, you're living the dream. And it's like, no, realistically we are, we're blessed 100%, but we'll never kid anybody and say like, you can make money out of a tank, and anybody can sell. And it's just, but how big do you want to scale up and how much do you want to sacrifice to do so? And to us, we've been willing to sacrifice everything. And that's just why we do what we do and why we're allowed to be here doing what we do. So yeah, I think that's kind of, anybody else got any questions? I can walk everybody through, but I think I jabbed my jaws for a little while.
Yeah, what time do these lights go out?
They actually go out at like 11:30 midnight, so we still got time.
Yeah, let's see some stuff.
All right, hit the lights, baby. Woo! All right, let's see.
Hey, I have a question for Poo Tang. 2 questions, if you don't mind.
My man.
Can I ask?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So well, the first one's not a question. The first one, I just want to say, man, you said something that caught my attention. It is that in these days that we live, you mentioned that you building a mother-in-law suite, man. That my hats off to you guys because, man, hardly anybody does that nowadays for their parents. You know, most people nowadays send them to homes and things like that, and you are building a suite for your mother-in-law. That's freaking outstanding. By the way, my bad. My
Hey
hats
man,
off.
no, what we're gonna do is, like I said, we are gonna. I mean, we're gonna do it as like a coral facility, but I mean, it is still gonna have the ability, dude. We're
Yeah.
there. You know, our parents are getting to that age, and that is a big thing too. We're starting to realize because, I mean, in all honesty, like again, my pops dealt with prostate cancer, you know, over the last few years, and he beat it, thank God. But Lindsay,
Yeah.
Lindsay lost her sister to gallbladder cancer, no, bile duct cancer, excuse me, liver cancer.
Yeah.
So Lindsay lost her sister to liver cancer a few years ago. So like, and then our parents are getting to that age where they're starting to have health issues, and so we got to start
Yeah.
planning at that too, man, because I ain't put my pops in a home, and nor would he take that.
Yeah, exactly, man. No, it's just great to hear, man, because that's the thing, man, that's big in Hispanic families, and I just want to say, man, that's awesome. And now the question is, if you can afford it, what will be the one fish and the one coral you will buy right now?
Ooh. All right. I gotta give this. Was that? No. I would give this one to I gotta give this one to Anthony. My good buddy. He was obsessed with those what do they call them? Tinker Eye angels or Tinkeri angels?
Yeah.
But one of those, man, he showed me one, and I do love that fish. That is very, very pretty. But I'm always scared too. Dude, I would always like to try a speciosa, but I'm always scared to try them, to be completely honest, just because I know they're uber sensitive. But yeah, man, I definitely I'd try a speciosa. I can't bring myself to trust myself enough to want to give the stability to keep that animal alive. I'll get there.
Awesome.
Thank
All right,
you.
bro.
Appreciate you, brother. So yeah, this is just walking you guys through. And if you guys want to see anything in particular, I'm just kind of, like I said, this is actually in our office. So when you first walk into our house, you basically see all this in here.
Can
And
I
this
have
was that.
can I have them all?
Don't get it, man.
Me too, right? God.
You guys make that trip. I'm giving you shit. But yeah, this is, like I said, this is what I mean. So I laugh because so giving you guys a little idea of like how it looks in here. I mean, this place has changed a whole lot. We used to have a big old wall right here that I tore out and gave her a heart attack. That tank went in and got done. This was a second, that tank back there was a second add-on to this system, and then this system was the last add-on, and it's all plumbed together. And I can always run you guys through top down, but if you guys ever want to see like you can kind of see how the plumbing runs. And here's our control system for the electronics and everything. And everything plumbs over to this sump. So this whole sump runs these 3 tanks. And you can see just,
Did you design all of that yourself?
Yeah, I did. So the tank I got secondhand. Actually, all 3 of these tanks I got secondhand. This tank I got secondhand, and it had never seen water before. The guy that I told you about that was I'll just go buy another one. Same. So he actually spent he told me he spent like 11, 12 grand on this tank. It's all Starfire glass, and then he never set it up in his house. So I ended up trading him a whole bunch of coral for it at the time. And I stocked it. He ended up getting a bigger tank, and I stocked it up with coral, and he ended up giving me this. So, and then we actually came across this tank too, used. And then this was the last tank we just got. I guess, how old is this thing? Maybe 6 months old now? Something like that. So, and actually I'll tell you, when we ball on a budget, it's a 250-gallon 6x3x24 with a steel stand, all Starfire glass, and I found it for $1,000 on Facebook Marketplace. So, like I said, this is somebody would spend a lot of money on this tank, and they had it set up as a freshwater tank before, and we were able to get lucky and get that one.
So how do you like to set up your filtration? So give us a rundown on how you set up your systems.
So
what do you use for filtration?
So just right here. So I got intake right here and filter floss, which needs to be changed, obviously. Here, let me get this back on real quick. Yeah, got it right here. Hey, you might have to help me with that. One hand. All right, so then I have my second container. So I've had things change over time. I used to use macroalgae in this container and tumble it, and then I ended up taking it out finally. But basically, I just run a UV sterilizer in there on the backside, and then just kind of one inlet, and then the outlet kicks out over here. And it's basically I just lay it on my sump because again, it was an afterthought. It was an after upgrade. Came across it and just had to figure out a nice way to throw it in there, and that was how it landed. And then skimmer section, and then return section. So I try not to be too complicated. Just filter floss, skimmer, live rock, and then return. And I pack this thing full of live rock pretty much. So, and you can kind of see down here in this section as well, like this is my filter floss section, but I have all live rock down here. So it basically hits the filter floss, live rock, live rock, live rock, skimmer, and then back to the tanks. And I've generally set all the tanks up like that. So this is wifey's tank. So this is her 125 gallon. And and basically just set her up with this that way, like, in such a way, simplicity. So what's the best way that I could build the tanks for her? Like give her the building blocks is not to get overwhelmed and understand what it is to run the tank. So basically, I had her manual testing before. I gave her, really simple methodology, like, hey, just, one inlet, or excuse me, one return and a filter sock. And it's not even in there right now. But again, live rock, skimmer, UV sterilizer, return. And that's, keep it simple. I personally don't like using GFO. If I need to work on nutrient removal, I try doing it through, again, skimmer, filter floss, and or bacteria. That's been my new endeavor with trying to promote better bacteria base. But you can see, like I said, she's doing.
So what bacteria?
So thank you to Acro, and Lindsay was just thanking Acro for all the rotten egg smelling today. We're using the PNS ProBio, and then we're using the microbe special blend, microbliff special blend.
Oh, stinky juice.
Yep. And the coral love it.
So what's your experience been with the nutrients control?
So her system, believe it or not, her system is at 0.9 in phosphates right now. Yeah, I know, right? Don't really look like it, but I've been having issues in both of these systems, the LPS system back there as well, having to do nutrient control. Had an undersized skimmer in this one. I do have an undersized skimmer in that one also, because that sump that you see was custom. That was actually my first tank. So when I originally put it in, I had bulkheads on the bottom, and I had to spacer it. I had to put a spacer on the bottom. Here, I'll walk you guys in there and show you. Yeah, this is our LPS display. And this is in our living room kitchen area. So
That's gorgeous. Oh my God, look at that thing.
And this is our view whenever we sit in here at night. And then you look right towards the front of the house, then you get that view. But
Oh
yeah, so,
man, that's a dream. You guys want to adopt?
So this is all like this is basically this sump, and you can kind of see where I had to do spacers underneath here to be able to not punch those bulkheads up, because again, this was a custom tank. But I got the glass baffles cut myself, and when I put it in, I left myself with too little space to get my skimmer out. So I can't upgrade my skimmer. I'm basically stuck with what I got there, and I am actually having another sump designed by Luna Reefs out of Central Florida, and they are going to be doing another sump for me, like that black one you saw up there. So if you guys like custom sumps and everything, dude, they do amazing work. I am very, very, very pleased with them.
Do you have UV on that tank?
No, I want to because I actually just ordered another UV sterilizer because after my tank upgrades in the garage, my current UV sterilizer is massively undersized and I've been shimmying other ones around the tank. So I just don't have dedicated ones. So I just ordered a 200 watt that's going to go on the garage system. And then I have an 80 watt that's going to go on this system again. So I'm trying to beef it up. I'm trying to get the correct equipment, but it's a slow process sometimes because shit's expensive, man. It really, really is. But
Nobody sending you free stuff?
yeah, not yet, man. And plus on top of that, like I'm always the kind of person like I never like being beholden to anybody. I like being able to say what I want to say and do what I want to do. And I feel like the second I start, if I would ever take on sponsorships or get free shit, then all of a sudden now I'm beholden to, somebody else giving me something nice for whatever reason. So yeah, I don't know. It's that weird thing. I've done everything. What's it called so far? Pretty organic.
Yeah, self-made.
Try to be the very, I like being independent and I like doing it all myself. And I like, that's kind of what we've settled on here with all this.
I appreciate that.
Poo Tang, you were saying that tank was running elevated phosphate levels. What are they on that system?
This one I've been having trouble with. It's probably creeping. I tested yesterday and I got it stabilized at 0.63.
Okay.
I was starting to have trouble because I just added the Chaeto back onto it again. And the problem that I was having, it was starting to creep up to like, it used to be a long time ago at 0.2. And then it slowly worked its way up, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. And I kind of started freaking out last week before it started reaching 0.7. And I really couldn't stay on top of it because I would do a water change and it would bring it down to like 0.6. And then within a few days, I see it already creeping up again. And that right there was pissing my torches off. And I was starting to kind of make them mad a little bit. So I'm like, you know what? I can't be doing this constant, like, up, down, up, down, up, down. I need to stabilize it. So, got us on the PNS Pro Bio. And like I said, between that and the special blend, I have been feeding more. And so like between the special blend, the Pro Bio and doing the macroalgae a little bit, I have stabilized and fed heavier at 0.63. So
Okay.
that's kind of where we're at with this one right now. And like I said, wifey's is at 0.9. But again, it seems pretty happy over there. So if I can,
Yeah, I do notice my torches get a little pissed off when I go above because I've always been high too, but I'm 0.2, 0.3. And if
right.
I go like 0.36, my torches get a little pissed off.
And that's the same thing I end up noticing. Like they're a little bit closed up because the evening time. But yeah, when I was at 0.2, everything was, in my opinion, everything was the happiest. Like the torches were the happiest. And the second I started slipping too high, my color slipped, and then my that's a big fluff ball. The second I started slipping higher and higher, I started noticing, some issues with some of the flesh bands and everything like that. They're not extending as much. And so
But they're still happy though.
They are. Like I said, I can't really, now it's kind of got me a little bit nervous to try and reduce my phosphates again. Cause I'm like, all right, well, if they're happy at 0.63, do I really want to go back down to 0.2 again?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what Greg was talking on his morning podcast this morning. It's like
Greg's
about the numbers.
here.
Is he?
Yeah.
Ah.
Hey,
Daryl's here.
so you run
Yeah,
your
I'm
system.
here.
What up,
You
man?
run-
Sorry about that. What are you saying?
I'm waiting for Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, no, I'm here just running some errands, so I was kind of on mute.
Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So you run your all your systems commando, aka bare bottom.
Yep. I have settled on bare bottom, and that's just personal preference. For the SPS, reason being, I mean, I love just cranking my flow up and blasting it, and I'm lazy with cleaning sand. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. So it makes more sense for me just to reduce the maintenance load by getting rid of it and then cranking my flow up, and I'm happy with it. I mean, it ain't it for everybody, because I know, don't get me wrong, there's still something about a tank with a beautiful sand bottom. And if I could ever do a big enough tank, like if I was going to do this tank and if I could possibly have a big enough tank and I can get everything up off the ground onto rocks, I would do sand, because I think something about that beautiful white scape of sand is nice.
What's the big tank for you? How many gallons?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, I would do, if I could do, okay, personally, this one needs an upgrade
15 by
eventually, and I
4.
hate to say it because my fish are getting quite large, and I ain't getting rid of them. So, I mean, this is
15 by 4.
What's that?
15 by 4.
My man. Honestly, like if I could fit something like that, that would be awesome. But I mean, for our house, what we could do, I think maybe eventually right here, I'd do like a 9 by 4, a 9 by 5 by 27 would be like a nice height to it. But then again, as time goes on, we'll see.
Joe, have a question about what flow are you running through your UV?
I don't.
Joe, you can ask that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not, to be honest, I kind of just threw some of my pumps on there that I had available and I just let it rip. So ain't no answer other than that. So I may be in the right way or I may not, but.
So
Yeah.
are you running UV because of the fish, or what's your purpose for the UV?
My issues I've had, like in this tank, for instance, and then the garage tank, were dinos. So, and then, nasty algae and everything, like just pest algae. And again, that goes back to me not being able to find my balance in the system. But if I could give myself a little bit of a leg up, and then on top of that, to be completely honest, that was a good friend of mine that also, gets coral from us here. He actually hooked me up with that. So I'm like, all right, I'm definitely throwing this shit on, because it's, it wasn't that much. It was the good friend hookup. So it made sense.
Sure.
I know we
So-
talk. Go ahead, Matt. To you.
I just wanted to make clear, now's the part where people can unmute and ask questions as they want.
Yeah. And should we stop recording?
Yeah, probably.
Oh yeah, and then we gotta walk you guys out to the show.
Yeah,
When we